On Gwydion and his magic cane for bringing me into the world. When I was flowers in the sun, never sickness did I feel. But now a night bird's what I am, and black's the world about me. But I shall dry my bitter tears, and once more liberated be. In cruel Gwydion he shall die, and I'll again be pretty flowers. The song returns us to the world of the Celtic mother goddess, and her defeat and disgrace by a patriarchy which turned her into a creature of the night, the witch. But as if through a subversive identification with that older way of life, and with the natural forces her long-gone ancestor, the mother goddess, represented, the witch never was delivered up by Celtic communities for sadistic punishment to the same extent as she was elsewhere. That sense of identification with an alternative world also permeates these texts, which celebrate the Welsh witch as heroine.
Thank you very much, Jane, for your paper. We have probably 10 or 15 minutes if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask Jane.
So, geographically, even in Wales, there didn't seem to be many witches in the south, but more in the north.
Yeah, those Cardiff babes. The folklore seems to be suggesting they were all over the place. And there's many, if you think of place names, quite a lot of place names with witch in it, Wath and so on. I haven't seen a map locating witches, but if you drew one and you had all possible folkloric evidence left to us, I would imagine it would be pretty obvious. I don't know.
There's the iconic image of a witch is our one on a broomstick, because it actually happened with a child. But I don't think you mentioned anything about flying, and I've come across flying witches believed in today, like in African cultures. So did you come across any?
No, I don't think there is many references to them. There's references to them changing shape. There's a very recent one, Glamorgan's Pant Glass, and that has a witch. Again, that's historical novels about, but that witch changes shape, and one of the shapes she's often in is a bird. So obviously she's then flying. There don't seem to be that many references to the broomstick in the Welsh material. There's not very much reference to the connection with Satan in the Welsh material, which is interesting. That's not as strongly represented. And possibly the broomstick went with the cloven heels kind of thing.
The link with organised religion, say pre-Reformation and post, was there more or less persecution of women who were seen as, wise women, witches, whatever? Or did that come in later with Puritanism?
Puritanism it happens quite early with the development of Protestantism. The main deaths are in the 17th century, end of the 16th century to just the beginning of the 18th.
Right.
All over Europe, there's a lot, isn't it? I mean, 50,000 is apparently quite a modest estimation.
Yeah.
Possibly more. It's quite difficult to find out all these figures.
Yeah.
And of course, that doesn't count the people who were the women and men who were killed not through the law courts. It doesn't count the whole dunking business. That's another area again.
Yeah.
It seems to be certainly in Scotland it's connected with the Presbyterian movement. I think in Germany as well.
Right.
I'm not actually a witch historian, but I don't know if anybody in the room is a witch historian. And the main texts on the witches in the courts relate to Germany. That's where a massive book of them was There's some of them in America, a lot of interest in Salem, that's the same, it's the same time, it's the same woman, very much Puritans there. It seems to be linked with the Puritan movement in particular.
Most of your stuff, Jane, has been post-Reformation, I think it's fair to say, isn't it? And I wondered, have you looked at any church court stuff? The actual trials are written at them.
I'm afraid I haven't.
You haven't gone that far.
No, I'm afraid not.
That might be a
I
rich
still haven't
source.
quite been turned into a historian.
You're nearly
Still the
there.
I keep ending up having to go into history books, trying to find something out, but basically it all comes to literature. I know there is an anomaly here in that the court cases of the witches are earlier, but I'm answering it through looking at the fiction that came later. But of course, the belief in witches persisted, whatever the legal situation was that after the beginning of the 18th century, the law no longer believed in witches, but you could be prosecuted for trying to get money out of people by pretending to do spells. That was how the law saw it. So they could have been taken to court then, but they were not
A quick question about literature.
Thank you.
to ask about what makes the Welsh witches Gothic, or what place they have within a Gothic text. Because if you think about Gothic as something that kind of is something that takes off from the kind of idea of a break between past and present, a superstitious past and a knowledgeable, enlightened present, and often in Gothic texts you have to feel that break in order for uncanny effects to be generated or shaped within literary text. And I was thinking about both Scottish and Irish Gothic. You have lots and lots of examples of that, the intrusion of that present, and often in the shape, for example, of the doctor figure, like in Sheridan Le Fanu or Stoker, or examples in Scotland as well. And it seemed to me actually that the examples you were giving were remarkably free of that kind of division, and in a sense almost not Gothic. The normalization of the witch figure.
Yeah, and you're quite right, particularly with the Gwyddon type. Like that first one again, it's a naturalist text. He's just he's hiding in that back room, and he's just watching what the witch does throughout the day. There is not an element of suspense in it. There's not an element of him being aware of a supernatural effect, and she's not actually practicing any supernatural art. So there's no break between the everyday present life and what she's actually doing. I think in the anarchic ones, like the Witches of Craigus, to some extent with Nancy Grant as well, there is a mystery and a darkness and a supernatural element which the text doesn't explain. So it's a question. They do have characters whom everybody knows as witches. You think that is Gothic. Is it Gothic or not? So it's an interesting genre question, but it's not present in the text in the usual way we associate with Gothic writing. When I saw that title, I thought I should have changed that. I should have said Welsh writing. I shouldn't actually have said Gothic, because some of them are not actually so Gothic.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting way to kind of mark a change or a moment, isn't it? Because, for example, I would say in the Irish ones, a lot of the pre-famine Irish writing, you wouldn't maybe categorise it as Gothic in exactly the same way, because aspects of kind of belief, different kinds of belief, are quite normally and naturally accommodated. And there isn't this sense of a need to kind of push a break between past and present.
It is true, but I still don't mean to leave the witches out, not even the Gwyddon ones, from writing about Welsh Gothic, because I think they're interesting.
Exactly.
But it's true, you have to say, don't pick up this text expecting the supernaturalism of a Gothic text. It's not actually there.
I was just interested that you were drawing pretty even-handedly, I thought, on male and female authors. Is there a distinction to be made that you just didn't deal with in this paper between male handling and female witch figures?
If you notice, the male ones tended to be the earlier ones. There are earlier women novelists. It's not that they're not there. They tend not to be writing about witches until you get to the suffragette period. And Alan Ray writes about witches a lot. She's got another novel which is called A Welsh Witch. In fact, that figure is not a witch at all. It's a misnomer. That is the figure defends herself from that's why I did write about the novel called A Welsh Witch, but that's Alan Rain, that's the end of the 19th century. It then features in women's writing, but before then, the people writing about witches tended to be men. I don't quite know why that was so, whether I haven't found any witches in women's writing before 1890.
I was struck by how forgiving they were of apparently, well, an easily demonised figure.
You mean the men or
yes,
both?
The male authors seem to be.
The men of the, I think there's sympathy with the anarchic figure quite strongly by the men as well. You know, this the sort of this smashing up of the established order. There's sympathy with that across the genders. And the witches, perhaps particularly the witches written by men, are quite masculine. You know, Nancy Dantes as well. They're not very female figures. They're quite, they're transgender figures.
You used the phrase a witch being constructed at one point, and I was wondering how far you had found consistency or inconsistency in the range of texts over time that you were showing us, because it seemed that the early 19th century ones belonged to a world of collecting curiosities, local customs, local characters, local beliefs, and then into the Gothic after Scott. And then presumably modern ones are much influenced by readily available studies of witches. And I wondered about how far you felt there was a witch with certain core, or even a Welsh witch with certain core meanings in the literature.
Well, this last one, that is quite typical of quite a lot of writing, which is consciously using those old myths, you know, to construct something which can only be Welsh because it's relying heavily on those old myths. There's lots of references to Gothic within women's writing in the decades of the 20th century and on into the 21st. And they are certainly deliberately seeking to create images of Welsh female identity, linking it to those mythic cycles. Earlier, the creation of the witch, she's responding to the community's needs, she's giving them what they want in order to get what she needs. She's probably not thinking of it in any conscious way as a sort of kind of Welsh creation. But the similarity of the images and all connections with their knowledge of the land, suggesting their ties with the older pagan beliefs.
Excellent. Well, we probably should stop there to get out of the building before all the mystical locks in this keep us in. So please join with me in thanking James really hard.